to do the show, but to get the job, to do the thing, and then to stick the landing as we did with season 3 of Picard, that's pretty amazing.
So how was it that you came to Picard?
I had
Made
met
that
with
call.
them for Discovery at one point, and that didn't work out. And I was on a Marvel show called Ghost Rider that imploded,
Yeah.
and we were shooting at the same studios where they're doing Picard. And in fact, we had some sound stages. We lent them to Picard for season 1. And so then they knew me. They knew it was that I was in the loop and whatever. And then when Ghost Rider went down and Todd Chernowski, who did season 1 of Picard, he left. I was kind of like right there. So, they called me. Then it turned out, that Terry Metalis, the showrunner, we both went to Emerson College in Boston. Both knew the same people. We had friends and things of that nature, both huge Star Trek fans. So we clicked and it went from there. So then all of a sudden, bang, I'm doing Star Trek.
Terry, right? He was an assistant or something during Voyager, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to go from that to running it that's quite remarkable as well.
It is. It's and he's such a great visionary, and hopefully he gets to do more Star Trek or more something else.
Yeah. Would you pop on Legacy if it happens?
Yeah. I mean, people all like to say, it's like, what you did. It's like, it's show business, and people have been out of work, doing. We'll get into the mental health aspects, but it's not like, people think it's like, it's something like Star Trek. It's like, oh, there's just like people sitting around waiting till Star Trek goes, and then they pop out of the waiting room and then and they join the show. It's like you got to pay your rent and work. I mean, it's like when we started back up for season 2. I mean, it's a great story anecdote that gets told. I got the band back together. Well, I called everyone. No one was available because they're all on other shows.
Yeah.
So it became that thing of going, oh, it's like, well, wouldn't it be great to get all these people back? And it's like, well, they weren't all just sitting, on their couches waiting for Dave Blass to call. They were, Mike Okuda was on For All Mankind, and Doug Drexler was on Orville, and so that's the way it will be. So it's like, would I love to do Legacy? Sure, but
you're working.
Well, we're not working. And then,
we're not working in this case. Yeah.
Yeah. The next call that comes, it's like, if it's a donut commercial, I'm doing it. And it's like, why didn't you do Legacy? Because I was on a donut commercial. What do you want me to do?
I think that's something that's important that a lot of people don't understand about the industry, right? It's either you're working and then there's so much job insecurity for everybody about what's going to come next. Yeah. Right? You're on a show, you're on a series, whatever it is. I had a friend who years ago told me, I just pitched a show to J.J. Abrams and now I'm going to the unemployment office to pick up a check. Is that kind of insecurity take a toll? Yeah.
Oh, it's horrible. And you get used to it, but it's just gotten next level toxic in the last, say, 6 years because, and it's probably 6 to 8 years, because of also runaway production. And because it's not only do you have a job, it's where is your job and who are you working with and what's the situation? Because it used to be, for years, all the production, most of the production was done in Los Angeles. And especially if you were doing TV, you'd go to work, every day at Warner Brothers for 22 episodes, and you'd work for a year on a season of a TV show, and you have your things, and that's what it was. But now with the streaming world, everything's cut down to 10 episodes, if that, and it's not done in LA. It's done in Atlanta or New Orleans or New Mexico or Toronto or Bulgaria, exactly. You look at something like Netflix Wednesday. I mean, the show takes place in Vermont, and they shoot it in Bulgaria or Budapest, whatever Yeah. So I mean, if you think about it, it's like, and why, and that spins back to the whole situation that we're in right now with the writer's strike. And I'm 100% behind the writers. I think that they deserve what they need to get. But on the flip side, the result of it will be more Budapest, because the studios don't have the money, because or if they do, they just don't spend it, because I'm the first guy who gets we don't have any money thing, and we don't have any money, and thus we're in Budapest shooting a show that takes place in Vermont. So, but that just means that every 6 months you're jumping on a plane, finding a new
somewhere else.
Airbnb to go somewhere else, and and then that that takes a toll on people's families, and and all that other stuff. So,
well, outside of like traveling to other locations, I know one of the questions that Trevor was hoping to ask you. So I'm going to jump in here and just steal it from him. But
yeah, go ahead.
Other than flying to Budapest or something and moving around, like can you talk about how like filming in volumes, like that to me seems like a big money saver versus being on location or building sets and sort of how your experience with that and what your thoughts are.
For folks that don't know what it is, the volume is basically a big curved TV screen. It's like a big screen. Like best example is if you go to like a concert, the big screen that's behind the band that has video on it. It's like that, but it's a big curved one, so that when you're standing in front of it, as opposed to the way it used to be done, where you put a blue screen up there and add the stuff later, you now have this video screen and you add the stuff at the time you're shooting. The challenge is it's a massive paradigm shift for the fix it in post versus now you have to do it in pre-production. So you're looking at a matter of like, let's just say 20 to 30 weeks to create the digital assets that go on the wall, which means that the script has to be done. The writers have to, everyone has to know what it is that's going to go on the screen. The director has to chime in. So it changes a lot of things, because normally a director comes in a week or two, maybe a month before starting shooting. So now all of these decisions have to be done well in advance, and often before the director gets hired. The director comes on, it's like, that's not going to work for my vision, and then it becomes problematic. So, but that's the main thing, which is you completely go from, you have to do a lot more up front, and it just changes the crewing and staffing and all that stuff.
Was the use of volume a life-saving Band-Aid during COVID?
We didn't use it at all during Picard. For some shows, it was. I mean, really, the
Discovery, right?
Discovery used it quite a bit. Yeah, and but the main problem is that it didn't. It helped a little bit during COVID, but not on but not really, because most of the stuff on just like something like Discovery that they were going to that they put on the volume would be something that you would put in blue screen. So that it's the same thing, and it's not really.
I don't know. See, like I personally, I directed one project on a volume. I didn't love it. I'm finding if the future technology, like the green screen with Unreal, okay, I get that a little bit better. I'm just finding not every show, but a lot of shows, I find that I hate to say this to someone in the industry, but I feel like sometimes the blocking or the DPs end up being a little bit lazy when a volume's in play, and everything still feels very flat.
You're very limited to only a few focal lengths with volume. I mean, that's what I've seen consistently. And that ends up lending to, I just feel like I'm seeing, the same range of camera shots.
Or like even like watching like a show like The Mandalorian, I feel like I was watching with my wife and I'm like, and cut, because I just saw they were just picking a spot to walk to and that was it, and then change it. So yeah, it's a money saving thing. It's like, but again, you look. I mean, John Favreau is a magician, and what they did with that, especially season 1, in creating all that from scratch and learning it. So it's like brand new.
It gives you the ability to do these things without going to the desert. I mean, again, the other thing I'll give them kudos to is Mandalorian shot in Los Angeles. So they did the thing, which is like, oh no, we're gonna shoot it all in Hollywood, figure out how to do something, whatever. And is it perfect? No, but it's a TV show. If you imagine taking that and then going back to the the 1980s Battlestar Galactica, or any other sci-fi show that you would do on an episodic weekly basis. Now we're just so used to these massive scale TV shows that feel like they should be on in a movie theater. And we're like, oh, well, you can look at this. And it's like, well, yeah, you're right. It's not whatever. It's a TV show. But now, the expectations keep climbing. But as you've seen now, the budgets and what everyone wants to get paid is climbing as well. So, and also then the audience doesn't want to pay for everything. So it's like, that's why Netflix had to say, okay, we're done with the share your password with, 9 people thing. So it's we're coming into a weird world, but I think the volume is going to become more of a thing. But it's a tool like anything else, and you just got to get people who know how to use the tools rather than just, show up and point a camera.
I mean, I've seen great examples of it being used. I thought cinematographer Greg Fraser, the way he used it and the way he used it in the Batman. I mean, I didn't know that so many of those shots were volume until, until afterwards. There is, I mean, of course, that movie had a huge budget and a lot of resources, but it is an early technology. And I think once the positive is that people will learn how to be more creative with it.
Yeah. Well, and also once the volume walls I just did a project with the folks up here on the volume at Pixamoto. And once the screens and everything, it's paid for, then more shows can do it. But it's going to be a thing, but you need the combination of the people designing the elements and the people shooting it to all be in synergy together. Otherwise, it just becomes a hot mess. And that's the other thing is you just, you're moving the digital concept artists, the people who are creating the elements, from the visual effects world, which is a non-union world, over to the production side, which is a union world. And how does that all work and affect the budget? So it's a lot of stuff.
So, but before we sort of hand this over to you, Trevor, Dave, I just want to get a sense of, a little bit more of a deep dive into sort of like a typical day for you, from you're brought on to, obviously let's talk about Picard. They brought on to Picard through sort of that run. What's the sort of day-to-day look like?
It really depends. Like on Picard, we shot in what are called blocks of 2 episodes. So one director would come in and do two episodes at a time. So depending on, the monumental difference between season 2 and season 3 was huge, even though we shot the series back to back. So there was no actual break between season 2 and season 3. We finished season 2 on a Friday, started season 3 on a Monday shooting. So there was no even break-in. But in season 2, there's a lot of locations. So the day would probably start jumping in a scout van and going and looking at locations with directors and producers and stuff, and looking at seeing what we like. And then also at the same time, either before we go scouting or in the mix, I'm working with the crew that is shooting, because we're shooting and prepping episodes at the same time. So not only am I building the sets, but I have to deal with the director who's shooting the sets that have been built 2 weeks ago. So it's a juggling act of, I'm working on probably 6 episodes at a time. So
now I heard you in another podcast say that you said Star Trek is a historical drama that takes place in the future with 60 years of history. Is that roughly what you said? So, in terms of pressure, like knowing that it's such a big property, does the pressure from studio, from directors, from showrunner, from the fandom, is that something that plays a part, or is that this is my gig? I happen to love it because I was always wanting to do Star Trek, and this is my gig, and I ignore all that?
No, because I do a lot of, and again, it's the thing now. I do a lot of intellectual properties. So it's comic books, and even Justified was based on but Star Trek's an easy one to sit there and say, oh, does it pressure? It's like, well, yeah, because people, the fans don't realize, like you get a director who comes in to shoot an episode, they may never have seen an episode, and they have no idea who the characters are, or not only, or they may have, they know Mr. Spock or something like that, but they may know, and then even worse, they may not care. They may not care, who fires the phasers or where they sit or whatever. So all that's information that you have to work with them and get them and do it in a way that, empowers them, but doesn't, tie their hands and things. And the same thing with the, cast members. It's like, it's that crazy thing of going, the guy sits down at the console to do the thing. Who tells them how to do the thing? I mean, that's, in reality, it's a question that doesn't get asked. It's like, well, whose job is it to tell the the guy flying the ship how to fly the ship.
Is that opposite than when you have someone like Jonathan